Okay, let me first share my screen with regards to the doc. Once I can find it, there we go.
So what is the current biggest challenge? Is like to match the automatically generated schema into the new schema? Or
No, that part was decently simple. If we have an expectation or a requirement of upgrading to 080, the problem comes from the vector aspect being conditional. Because it makes a change to the database table, the sessions database table, I believe it is, to add a new column with vector support. And
is it possible to make it as externalize it and move it to like completely external?
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be the best approach here. So instead of like modifying, because I want these.
So basically, if it's optional, and if it's just I don't know, if it's 1-to-1 or one-to-many. So if you're saying it on a session table, it means like 1-to-1, right? So you can have just external table just for vectors, and then it's used only in that situation, and it can be completely like skipped as a optional conditional.
Yeah, exactly. Because my concern is, changing the column name or the table name at some point in the future, and then deciding to enable vectors, and so having all of the normal migrations run, and then the vector migration run, and have it not exist anymore, like what it's referencing, and just break everything.
Yeah. I totally agree.
And then for extension purposes, like if anyone wants to add additional migrations for whatever purpose, it would need a similar guarantee to not break, so like you'd have to make sure that
What about like memory in general? This is like vector for the sessions, but do we have any separate memory tables?
Maybe I'd have to double check. I can't remember which table it was on offhand.
Wait, Jeremy, do you remember like what was it trying to change in the session table? Because I don't remember.
Maybe it was the
changing
memory
the
table.
session table.
No, you're.
I think it tries to add like a new table, and if we don't want it, we can just like not add a table in the extension, right?
I'd have to double check. The conversation.
I kind of forgot, but I'll also double check.
I was trying to find all the edge cases, and I thought that this was with the session table, but now I'm not sure. That might have been just the example to like show this. Okay, well, either way, the point being that currently the way that I'm doing it is having two separate directories, and then the migrations from core apply all, like all the core migrations apply, and then conditionally, if vectors enabled, that directory of migrations applies, because you can't really interleave and you can't have conditional migrations, and so I just want to make sure that we don't break either upgrades or initial deployments based on changing columns or removing columns or anything like that. So my current approach is to only allow us to expand the database and not remove things, but obviously that causes its own complexity over time in terms of like cruft that builds up. So I'm still trying to think a lot of it through.
Basically, if I activated the right, then
say it again.
Yeah, just a second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it was maybe just me, but
no, I think it's on my side. Something was as well. So I'm just saying that at the moment someone is enabled this, right? We are not allowing to disable the vectors in the way, right? Like from schema point of view. We don't like drop it, right, or something. We keep it there.
Currently, yeah.
So basically, as soon as
right?
as soon as this flag was enabled once, and you have already the table created there, you need to follow always the additional pass with additional changes.
And if you have the flag disabled, can you enable it in the future? Like if you add that extension to your Postgres database, I feel like you should be able to start using vector required features.
Yeah. But it's important to keep them in this, like you said, like in the way that we can externalize it maybe to separate table, because then it would be easier to follow all the migrations for the session table. You will have this, like time issue where there will be extra columns and then something will not match.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was, because I could have sworn it was modifying a table that already existed, but the more I look into it, the more I see it's like just creating the memory table. Which
also maybe for the long term, for the future, we need to see, maybe after a certain version, we will just say that this is like a mandatory thing, and to have it, these extensions, we just now have it as a conditional because not everyone is ready with the switch, and to enable it like more easier way. But after like certain version, we could say like, okay, I don't know, like if we have like 1.0 release or something, we can say your database should have these extensions enabled, and then everything will be much easier.
Yeah.
So
I think we'll still run into this with like anyone who's importing Kagent as a library and doing their own migrations. Like they would run into this if they were modifying existing tables that they didn't migrate in their track. So I'm adding it as a Claude skill to basically say you can only expand. You should only touch the tables in your track. You shouldn't modify tables that are created in a different track. And I'm calling tracks the like separate migration folders. So in this case, it is core, and then we have vector, and then you could have whatever else you wanted if you wanted to expand upon that. So okay.
Yeah, I need also to look a bit more into it because.
And I moved away from init containers yesterday. I don't know if you happen to see that, but now it's all in-app, and then there's.
I was pro this way because init containers like give too many different ways to fail.
Yeah.
And if you have everything in app, it's much better. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Makes sense. I just didn't have a clean way to put in an extension point the first iteration, but I found a better way to do it. So I think it's a good approach overall. It's just these like little edge cases that I want to have checks in the end-to-end tests or in the PR checks to make sure that we don't break our migrations for existing or new.
I think it makes sense. We need to think how we test that basically migrations are compatible maybe between versions as well.
Yep. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. Because I want to say that we support only minor to minor and not skip versions, which I think is a pretty normal thing to do. I was thinking we could have, let's say 0.7 latest code run against 0.8 migration.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a like if we say you can only go from 0.7 whatever to 0.8 whatever, then you have to know that code runs against that newer migration because of the multi-replica aspect. So I'm just trying to figure out how to do that, how to encode that into like a check or an end-to-end test.
So first of all, do you inject the in the controller itself? Do you inject now the version so we can have in the code a specific?
I thought we had that already, but if we don't, I think we should have that.
I think yeah, I remember we were injecting some of the things in compile, right? We do the compiler flags for that. Yeah. So basically, you should have ability to detect, okay, if this is a specific version, if this is like below that, you just yeah, you can kind of detect if you're starting from very old database and you are on very new one, right? Then you can just say, okay, either it's manual or it's like failing. And then if it's just compatible from the good one as a starting point, then you can probably, yeah, but on database side, we don't have any information about the schema, right? So maybe we should try to.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking like it would, okay, so let's say you wanted to add a new column. You would do your things to make sure that.
So schema itself, right? It has usually numeric migration steps, right?
Correct.
And you always know on which migration you're currently.
Correct. But you can't necessarily map that to a version of the code, like a numbered version, unless you like track that separately. So the way I'd been thinking about it would be to support both paths in code. No, sorry. To have all of your code still work against the future migrations. So like, let's say you add a new column and you say it can't be null, then you have to make sure that has a default so that old inserts don't fail from the old code. And then in a future version, you could remove, well, you can't remove the column because of the potential issues that I'm seeing, but you could at least, you wouldn't have to have like two approaches in code, I don't think, ever, if you do it right. So I just want to make sure like all that's like well tested as part
but
of
this is also achieved if you have this number of files, right, and you just inject those files inside, or you add or exclude them, right, that should be automatically handled, because the migration script will always like take the list of files sorted by the numbers, and it will try apply all of them, right?
Agreed. Yes.
Yeah. So if we have another like optional subset, it should follow just a similar like numbering, but have maybe some prefix or something that identify that this is like vector related. And then basically we should keep the temporal numbering always the same. We don't introduce another numbering schema, but we just remove some subset, because if you include this, then you actually have all the changes which are on top of vector also there, but they will touch only separate tables. And you can just take all of the vector related numbers out, and it will still work this way or another way,
Okay, I see. So you're saying have one directory with all of the migrations, prefix the optional ones with something,
or suffix, so prefix is suffix, yeah.
And have the
something like this.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this way it will be more easier, and you will not have this double things, because it must be ordered in the same way. Because you see, now today we added the vector tables. Tomorrow we do changes for vector tables globally. We want to move, rename, do something. It's another subset on top, right? And then another one. So the numbering should be always follow the same thing, and I think it will be easier. So the flag will work for numbering on top of numbering, and it will solve the those two folder problem.
Okay. And then when you add new numbers, I think there would have to be a requirement. You could never add one earlier in the process. So if your current was 3, you could never say in a next
just use the same approach as any basic programming was done before. You just use it numbers by tens, for example, and you can keep some of those things. But I think they're just normal numbers. We never add numbers before. If it's already there, you just add numbers on top.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I'm thinking that is because I thought, and I don't know for sure what the table looks like, but for Golang migrate, I know that there's some level of tracking of what's been run, and I don't know if it's like this is the last applied number, or if it's something.
Yeah, usually they have like migration table with all the applied stuff, and they kind of sort them again and then run. But you are correct. We should merge only the migrations with higher numbers. It's not a good practice to have lower numbers.
But then what happens when you go to add? Okay, so let's say that it says, oh, 3 exists. So when you add 2A, it's never going to run. But if 2A
no, I'm not sure. It might be running, but I think it's a bad practice because.
But I mean, for like not adding it in code, but enabling vector support, then would inject that earlier in the process.
The only thing, the vector support, because it will exist in a separate namespace, kind of like from the script perspective and from the schema, it's more important that all the vector support within this numbering will run properly, together. And even if you enable it later, like let's say the separate test we can do, like disable it, apply schema, then enable it and apply only vector on top, right? So it should still fill the gaps and create all the needed. And then another test will be just a normal way. You enable from the beginning, everything just runs full schema. So we can have like both of those scenarios. And usually migrations, I don't know, some frameworks, they have up and down. So you can technically have up and down if you want for kind of things, but I don't think
you'd have data loss potentially.
Yeah, we don't want data loss for vectors. Even if someone enabled this, that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll have to think about it because it sounds like what you're proposing is like an interleaved set of migrations.
Yeah.
And what I currently have is 2 sequential tracks, and I'll just have to like think it through, see what.
Because then the interleaved one will be kind of giving us the overall sorted picture. Even if someone, it's not necessary someone do a late in adoption, but maybe most of the people at some point they will just have it, enabled, and then we will need to handle everything together. I'm just thinking if that could be a solution. Let's evaluate it as a.
Yeah, I'll look into it some more. I had briefly looked into it early on this, and I believe there were some issues that I'd run into, but I'll look into it more.
Okay, sounds cool.
Cool. What else do people want to talk about?
Dobes?
Hi.
Hey. You have anything to discuss? You mentioned some things in the chat during the week.
What?
Anything about hooks?
One thing I want
anything about hooks? Anything about? You remember we had a discussion like if we can introduce hooks with ADK or?
Yeah, someone actually opened. It was kind of weird. Someone opened a pull request for hooks, like right after I created an issue about hooks, and then the next morning we had that call, and then in between that time, someone opened a pull request. So I don't know. I think someone's gonna. I think A10's gonna look at that.
Okay.
See how he responds to it. The other thing that I run into, I don't know if anyone's working on this, is just like reliability, like retries, or like in the UI, you often just get like disconnected from the WebSocket, and it just kind of says error and just sort of gives up. I know that the temporal work might help with that to some degree. I don't think it'll help with the UI part, but like, or if the model is down, like if Anthropic is down, like it doesn't really try very hard. But I was looking at maybe Agent Gateway would help with that part of it.
Yeah, Agent Gateway has this automatic switch failover, I think.
Does it retry automatically too?
It
might.
Good question.
So,
depends how much of retries do you have.
Yeah. So on the model side, it's not bad, but internally within Kagent,
within
UI to the agent, if it gets disconnected, it just kind of gives up. And between agents as well, like when an agent delegates to another agent, if the other agent is like restarting, then there's, as far as I can tell, there's not, or at least doesn't retry for very long.
I think for some of those cases, we had previously some discussions like that we can have this temporal, which helps, and then also NATs as a eventing, kind of messaging queue. But we didn't finalize like on this idea which one will we stay in. I think NATS was, we agreed that like almost will be there included, and it can give us basically on top of the regular protocol those kind of buffering like of all events and things, right, which go in, go out, and it could potentially allow retry as well. Also, like if we do this with temporal has built-in retry policies.
Okay.
But it's more like on the entire, like I think it's entire LLM call or entire MCP call. So I don't know if that's counts in your example, or you have like a smaller granularity. Is it like a single LLM call that you want to retry, and then basically you're saying that agent gateway will switch to the fallback on different provider? I think it's configured.
I think just in general, right? I just run into flakiness where it's like, oh, I'm trying to run some automated thing like a code review, and it runs, and then I get stuck because like maybe an agent was rebooting or Anthropic is overloaded, and then it's like, how do I figure out how to like get that to continue? Like, I don't mind if it keeps retrying for like an hour, right? In some cases, it's just keep, you know.
Yeah, for the long running, for this long running retry, this is definitely like task for, like it's a good fit for the temporal as execution because they have such rules and stuff. But we don't have agreement if we bring temporal to the current stack. I think it's still in the discussions, and also I need to create a pull request with proposal because
just thought I'd ask about it. It was something that I was thinking about.
But it's a valid use case. I think this is good use case that basically you run something, let's say Anthropic goes down or all your model providers down, then you have some network, some other stuff, and then at some point you go back and you want to finish it successfully, right? Like a complete workflow.
Yeah.
So your policy,
agent, right? Like sub-agent.
So retry policy should have enough of the retries in order to be able to resume it after like an hour, right? So it's like if you do retry every 5 minutes or something, or 15 minutes, you have different number of retries until it fails. So we need to think what is the good reasonable default for those numbers.
Also, just configure them too. If I can set it, then I can tweak it. Right?
Yeah. But
I think right now there's just nothing though, so it's like, you got to start first.
No, we are missing currently. Yeah, it's clear, and it's the same experience I had like recently with coding agents as well, because like Anthropic was down for a couple of times in the last months, right? And it was overloaded. I was getting as well like this code for overload, and I was switching for some alternative providers in that moment. But having this as a feature in the Kagent, I think it makes sense because it happens more often than we think. I think in full production you will hit it more time, and if you have a lot of parallel tasks and workflows, like hundreds, let's say, right, and you want to complete all of them like in few hours and recover, that makes sense, because then otherwise you cannot just go and resume them manually. So this automatic recovery make a lot of sense. Maybe like we can increment retry time exponentially, like most of these things are doing, or some other stuff. But this is definitely not agent gateway task to do it. Agent gateway can only give you like a switch between models after certain threshold of errors. So if you accumulate this number of errors, then basically you decide, okay, I need to change the model from this to another. And it could be also like fallback inside the same provider but different model because a specific model is overloaded, or it can be fallback like completely on different provider, like if entire Anthropic is down, right? So this the same is like if you use Cursor and your Anthropic is not working, you switch to Codex or switch to yeah, some other stuff.
With the agent gateway, if it gets an error, it doesn't automatically retry. It has to get like a certain number of failures. So the failure would still come back to the K agent in that case.
I think it's configurable, but I guess yes. I think it has some kind of like a threshold number that. And we need to check exactly and maybe simulate this. But
I was using Light LLM proxy, which does automatically retry for me. But then I was thinking about switching to Agent Gateway because I think it might be more memory efficient. Like Light LLM for some reason needs like 5 gigs of RAM to run, and I'm just like, this is not what I was expecting for something that just like proxies requests.
Yeah, and Light LLM was actually recently in the news, so you don't want that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe being in the news means that they'll be more diligent in the future, though, as opposed to someone who never had an incident with.
Yeah, I think we stripped Light LLM out of Kagent entirely at this point.
Yeah, definitely. That was an. Yeah, I think EDK should not have it as well. So they brought it as a dependency.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look on this hooks pull request. I don't know if you want to still discuss it.
Let's see.
Is that something that I see something like hook config command like executable relative to the dir? Pre-tool use and post-tool use, and basically
this one.
Yeah.
So pre-tool session start. It's obviously some AI generated.
Yes.
As usual.
Yeah.
I haven't reviewed this one myself yet.
Yeah, there is some review comment from the Copilot, I think, 2 days ago.
Yeah. Just one? Is that it? Wow, it's usually has so much to say.
Yeah, just one at the moment. Yeah, I think it's kind of a simple extension. So they introducing 4 different hook events for pre-tool use, post-tool use, and hook event for session start, session end.
Yeah, I mean, it looks basically like what I would have done, but I haven't maybe have to get looking at the details and check if it actually works. Is there like an automated test harness for this kind of thing that is needed? Test data inputs, outputs?
Yeah, I'm just not sure that it says something about like executing.
Yeah.
And
it looks
then,
like
yeah, what is this? Like agent with hooks JSON test data. So there is like an agent card with some, yeah, okay. It's a test data, fine. And it's basically, it's added to the Kagent ADK Python, right? And also trying to see if it's also in Go version. I don't see the Go implementation for it. Only API changes. And
it might be right. Maybe only Python has it right now.
yeah, I would actually expect. Yeah, I don't see Go runtime for the hooks.
Right. Well, I mean, Python's an okay start. You can at least test it there.
Yeah, but then it's running like a command, right? They say it's command.
Yeah, yeah, that's how it works in Cloud Code and things like that. They run a command. It makes it very flexible because you just you can just write a shell script or a command and like do whatever you want, right?
Okay.
It has like a type field, so you can add like other types later if you wanted to make it do like an MCP style, like an API call instead. You could add that.
Yeah, and in this situation, do we want to have all the hooks like synchronous hooks only, or can be also like asynchronous in a way?
They can be, yeah. I don't know how it was implemented here. Again, we don't have to do it doesn't have to be perfect. There, in Cloud Code, they do have a flag that can say async, and then it can't block anything. It just like runs in the background.
Yeah, in Cloud actually, it has also like if it's synchronous, it has some output, and you basically like allow or deny.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly,
so you can return like some JSON format saying like I looked on your request and I am not approving this command or something, right?
Yeah, it looks like that was put in here as well.
But because our current agents are most of them are using some kind of MCP, and we call it through the agent gateway and everything. I think our like approval and so on, it's based on different different treat model, different architecture. So we everything is going through HTTP, and then we kind of decide and approve these HTTP calls. So when we have policies, we have agent gateway with policies for tool calls, and maybe some of them are allowed, some of them not allowed. I would actually prefer to keep it like more in this direction in a way, because then we can combine it maybe and do the same rules and everything. But with commands and CLI, it's a bit tricky. I think there is no clear answer yet how it should look like, right? So maybe we should bring this look on the agent gateway, how things are defined there, and maybe bring some similar expressions, or like there are in Cloud Code, if you just take Cloud Code, right? They have this file with Cloud settings where you have all the tools that you allow with patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can have support for one of those formats, and also the question is like, do we want to have like a first-class support for CLIs? If this is the thing, then we want to actually allow CLIs like more remotely executed in the remote sandbox. Then you call everything via some sort of HTTP, and then you can also do sanitize and validate and reject via like agent gateway.
Yeah, I mean, for the hooks, it seems fine to me to have the option to run them as a command. Like you just load the binary into the image and run it.
Yeah, your skills basically or something can have also binaries, right?
Yeah, we already do that for skills, so
yeah,
it's not that. It's kind of the same. It's like automatic skill calling kind of. So I think it makes sense. I mean, the general approach of this makes sense to me, at least. I would be in favor of this, the way that it is designed. I haven't figured out if it works yet. I haven't tested.
Yeah, but if you bring, for example, the exec tool and you give I don't know, like bash and curl, you make everything possible. This is like opens the security part will become really challenging, and like if we currently have agents which are kind of static binary, no extra things to call, everything is called via MCP. This is very good security model. So you have like read-only container, you have everything secured, you call MCP, you control what is on the other side. But if we give to the agent like sandbox, right, with extra things, then it's could be anything. It can have a prompt injection, it can call any tool, it can do.
But you've already done the same thing with skills, right? Skills already, you just give them a bash, they can run whatever they want. So I don't know
yeah. This exactly, yeah. So yeah, if you're already using skills, then hooks are kind of natural. I agree. But that also means if you start to use those extra tools and extra things that you need always to have like security on top of those hooks, so you will have at least the minimal hardness, minimal checks, right? So some kind of approval.
I do think we should add like remote hooks. Like I don't think the command hook should be the only option, but I think it's an okay start because there's a lot of like pre-made hooks, right? Like there's this what's it called, destructive command, like something like this, right, where you can you can just use this hook, right? It's already made, right? It's already made for Claude Code. So that's kind of the motivation, or the was it Rust token?
Can you add the link of this destructive one? I think I know this guy. Yeah, I know who this GitHub. Yeah,
that seems to be a bit prolific in some way. Yeah, he's got a lot of. I can put it in the chat probably.
You can add it also to the notes, meeting notes.
No,
or I can add notes to the chat so you can find it easier. Yeah, no issue. Here it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we're done, maybe, right? Or do we have anything else? I think we're running out of time. And yeah, so if you have these extra comments maybe about the remote hooks, I suggest maybe put it in the PR so the person can extend it with maybe a bit more things.
Yep. Sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Cool. Well, we can call it a couple minutes early, and yeah, thanks for all the discussion. See you all next time.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, everyone. See you on Tuesday.
Yep.
Bye.